It is a significant day for the world's Anglican community of around 80 million people.
The incoming Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, will find himself facing some difficult challenges.
Enthronement of the 105th Archbishop of Canterbury.
Something in me said, this is what you should be doing.
That enthronement service was amazing. You had everyone there. You had the Prime Minister, the Prince of Wales, the Leader of the Opposition, every leader in state, and it's all about you. You knock on the door and it's all about you. What's going through your mind at that moment?
Rather like now, my mind went more or less totally blank. But I think the key things was, in terms of what I was praying, it was that it wasn't all about me, because it's actually all about Jesus. Because the whole point of the thing is that it is all about Jesus. That's what matters.
You faced a major tragedy in your life. I said you had 5 children. Of course, you had 6 children. Just talk a little bit about that and the impact on you of that.
Well, we were posted back to the UK from France by my employer in the summer of '83, and our daughter Joanna had been born on November the 5th, '82. And on the way back, the car that Caroline was being driven in, which had Joanna in it, crashed, and she was injured. And that was a Monday, and she died on the Friday. She was in intensive care. And it was an extraordinary period in a number of ways. It was obviously indescribably painful, and there'll be many people here and watching online or at the other sites who also know what that feels like. But it was also a time when both of us still remember that there was more of a sense of the presence of God than almost any other time in our lives, and the reality of God's love. And so it was this extraordinarily intimate relationship with God, of weeping and praying.
From there you went to Coventry Cathedral, where you were involved in a lot of reconciliation work, particularly in Nigeria. And while you were involved in that, your life was sometimes under threat. And I think there were occasions when you rang your wife, Caroline, and said, this is a goodbye call.
Yeah, I was slightly less melodramatic. I said, I don't think I've got this one quite right. I think was one of the phrases I used. Yes, there were a number of occasions, I think 3, where it was certainly very uncomfortable indeed, and about another 3 where I discovered later that we'd been very well protected.
Such an understatement, Justin. I have read that a young militia leader told his accomplices to take Welby out and shoot him. His life was saved when a local elder spent half an hour pleading on his behalf. That sounds a little bit more than a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it was a little bit uncomfortable, but they were talking in the local language, so being a very sensitive and intuitive person, I realized the body language, like the guns, was probably not very positive, but I didn't quite realize how bad it was till a bit later that day, and then we spent the night waiting to see if he let us go the following morning.
I mean, how do you deal, that is fear, that is real fear. How do you deal with fear in your life?
At the time, I get much more nervous going somewhere like that before I go. Once you're there, you're usually too busy to be that frightened, I think. That night, I do remember, though, I had a communion set with me and celebrated communion quietly and spent a long time in prayer, just wanting to make sure that if it didn't go right, the accounts were clean, as it were. I'd sort of sorted things out a bit, really, as much as one can. I think fear is dealt with by grace. I find coming up here and doing this extremely fearful, to be honest, but what I'm aware of is it's not who we are that matters. It's who Jesus is that matters. And to quote someone from the 19th century Christian leader in Scotland, we are what we are before God and nothing more. That's Murray McChaney. And that is so true, and that deals with fear because it's all grace. It's all grace. And if we're obedient and take up our cross and go with Jesus, to be absolutely honest, the rest is really his problem.